Okay folks, in this video I'm going to show you how to do some easy routine maintenance on your motorcycle's chain. I'll be showing you what steps to take to properly clean and lubricate the chain, as well as how to check the chain's tension and tighten it if necessary. Now first, I know some of you just clicked on this video because you probably bought one of those Maxima chain maintenance kits and you're probably wondering what order to use the cans in and how to clean the chain. I'll show you the steps real quick before I get into the rest of the video. Step 1. Spray the chain with cleanup chain cleaner. Step 2. Scrub the chain. Step 3. Hose the chain down with a garden hose and then wipe dry. Step 4. Spray MPPL on the chain and wipe dry again. Finally, step 5. Spray the chain with chain wax. And now you're done. Okay, now let's go over some of the supplies and tools that you would need to complete this task. I'll have some tips and tricks for spraying the chain at the end. For cleaning the chain, you will need cleanup chain cleaner for dissolving gunk buildup, a catch pan, shop towels and or rags to keep your workspace clean as well as drying off the chain, a grime brush or something to scrub all four sides of the chain, a garden hose to wash off the chain, MPPL or multi-purpose penetrant lube for penetrating down into all the nooks and crannies and displacing water that's in the chain, chain wax. For chain tightening, the tape measure, an open-ended 10mm wrench, an open-ended 14mm wrench, the 17mm socket, a 22mm socket, a socket wrench, a breaker bar, and a torque wrench to make sure you correctly torque the axle nut when you're done. This project should only take you about 30 minutes total. It's literally that easy. Okay, now on to the procedures. First, we're going to clean the chain. After placing your catch pan for the oil or rags, step 1 is going to be to spray on the cleanup chain cleaner. This is a solvent that helps soften up the grime buildup on the chain. Now how much you spray on is up to you. You might not need as much if your chain is barely dirty, but if your chain has a lot of caked on grime, the more MPPL you spray on, the less scrubbing you'll have to do. Step 2. Scrub the chain with a grime brush while spinning the rear wheel. Make sure to scrub on the top side as well as the bottom, and make sure to spin the wheel in both directions for at least one full pass. Repeat as many times as necessary until you really start to break up all the grime. Step 3. Spray the chain down with a garden hose while spinning the rear wheel to get all of the gunk off. Now I know what you're thinking. Water and unfinished metal, like a chain, don't mix. That's how you get rust. Well, typically yes, if you let the water sit on the metal. But we're going to take care of that issue in the next step to ensure that rust doesn't form on the chain. Now when you're done hosing the chain down, go ahead and wipe it dry with some shop towels or rags. I use disposable shop towels as they do a great job of absorbing any fluids, and I can just throw them out if they tear or get dirty. Make sure to get all four sides of the chain and spin the wheel around for several passes. Step 4. Spray on the MPPL. This is a hydrophobic solution that is meant to displace the water we just sprayed all over the chain to ensure we get as much water out of all the nooks and crannies as we can to prevent rusting. Make sure to wipe down all four sides of the chain again to ensure the chain is as dry as you can possibly get it. Step 5. Spray the chain wax liberally on the chain. You can use gloved hands to spread the wax around all four sides of the chain rather than spraying again on the other side. That's it. You're all done with this part of the chain maintenance. This part should only take you about 10 to 15 minutes. Alright, now on to the fun part. Checking the chain tension and adjusting as necessary. Every motorcycle is different, so make sure to check your owner's manual, as it should walk you through exactly how to do this for your specific bike. In the owner's manual for my 2017 RC390, the chain tension servicing instructions start at the bottom of page 94. Now typically to check the chain tension, you want to make sure the bike is in neutral and pick a spot on the lower side of the chain, roughly between the swing arm pivot point and the rear sprocket. Then pull down on the chain to get a starting point with a tape measure or ruler, and then push up on the chain to get your final measurement. You subtract the smaller number from the bigger number, and that tells you how much play you have in the chain. However, according to my owner's manual, it indicates a specific point between the second and third X shape on the left side of the swing arm to simply push up on. The owner's manual states that the bottom half of the chain should come to between roughly 0.28 of an inch and 0.20 of an inch, or 7 millimeters to 5 millimeters from the bottom of the swing arm. Any further and the chain would be too tight. Any less and the chain would be too loose. As you can see here, my chain is touching the bottom of the swing arm with ease. There's even some play from side to side, so my chain is definitely too loose. To tighten the chain, most people prefer to lift the rear wheel up on a paddock stand, but I quickly realized that the cradles for the paddock stand blocked my access to the retention and adjustment nuts on either side of the swing arm, so I just did this next bit with the rear wheel on the ground. It actually wasn't that hard. The owner's manual states to first loosen the rear axle. This is where you're going to need the socket wrench and the breaker bar. So go ahead and put your 22mm socket on the breaker bar since that's the one you're going to be spinning, and put the 17mm socket on the socket wrench since you're just going to be holding that one still. Now you don't have to take the spindle nut off completely, we just want to loosen it so that we can get the wheel to adjust. So hold the left side steady while loosening the right side a few quarter turns. Once you loosen the rear axle spindle nut, you should be ready to loosen the 14mm retaining nuts on both sides of the swing arm. Remember orientation. To loosen the left side nut, turn the wrench down. To loosen the right side nut, rotate the wrench up. If you were standing behind the bike, the orientation would be that you are spinning both nuts in the same direction, counterclockwise to loosen them. Once both of the retaining nuts are loose, move on to the left side 10mm adjustment nut since that's the side the chain is on. Rotate the left side adjustment nut downward and check the chain tension again. If it is now in spec, you can move on to the next step. If not, give the adjustment nut another rotation and check the chain tension again. Repeat this until your chain is in spec. Keep track of how many downward spins you give this nut before the chain tightens into spec, as you will need to match that number of rotations on the right side as well to prevent the rear wheel from being crooked or out of alignment. Once your chain is back in spec, make sure to turn the right side adjustment nut upward as many times as you turn the left one downward, or until the markers on either side of the swing arm are even. The KTM 390s have these little notches here that you'll be able to see clearly when you're down level with them. You might want to take pictures with your phone so that you can quickly compare the two to make sure that they're both even. Once you are reasonably sure that both sides are even, go ahead and tighten down the retaining nuts on both sides. Remember to hold the adjustment nuts still so that you don't end up undoing the work you just did. I didn't see where it specified torque numbers to put on these in the owner's manual, but I saw somewhere that they should only be tightened to about 5.6 to 5.7 foot-pounds. So not very much, just tighten them enough to keep them from coming loose again. Use a 10mm wrench to hold the adjustment nut in place while tightening the retaining nut. Once both retaining nuts are tight, go ahead and tighten the rear axle. Use the socket wrench with the 17mm socket on the left side to hold the spindle in place, while using the torque wrench on the right side with a 22mm socket to tighten the spindle nut down. According to my 2017 RC390's owner's manual, you should tighten this nut down to 66.4 foot-pounds, or 90 Newton meters. Once you hear your torque wrench giving a solid click, the nut should be at the specified torque. Alright, congratulations, you should be done cleaning, lubing, and tightening your bike's chain. As promised, here's my tip for how to do this if you don't have a paddock stand and swing arm spools. There's two ways that you can go about doing this.
The first way, the hard way, is manually walking the bike up and down the driveway while spraying and scrubbing the chain. The other way, the easy way, is to get these swing arm spools here on both sides. Then you're going to get one of these lifts, and it'll allow you to lift the back wheel right up off the ground, and it makes doing this a breeze. Let's say for a minute though that you don't have the swing arm spools, but you need to work on your chain. Okay, so how would I do this? Well, there's really, again, two ways of doing this. You can do it from the left side. This gives you more control over the aim of spray on the chain, but the problem is it makes it to where you don't really have that much control on the bike. So if you have a hard time keeping your bike upright, maybe it's a little heavy for you, doing it this way is going to be a little bit harder. But if you do it this way, one thing I like to do is put the bike in gear. That way when you release the clutch, the back wheel locks up and the bike won't go anywhere. When you're ready to start pushing it, just pulling on the clutch and spray while you're walking the bike. If the bike starts to get away from you at any time, just go ahead and release the clutch, drop the can, and grab onto the bike before it tips over. The second way to do this is coming at it from the right hand side. This way is a lot easier. It gives you a lot more control over the bike, especially if the bike's a little bit heavier for you. And if the bike starts to tip away from you, it's got the kickstand. If it starts tipping towards you, you can easily stop it with your legs. So what you do is you just make sure the handlebars are straight. Lean over the bike like this. You can grip onto the back here with your left hand, and with your right hand you're going to just lean over and spray the chain. The downside to doing it this way is obviously you don't have as good of an angle on the chain, so if you've got a chain guard like this one does, you're going to have to remove the chain guard before spraying the chain because you can't really get to the bottom half of it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and use the swing arm spools here. I'm going to lift the back wheel up off the ground. Before you try to lift the back wheel up off the ground, make sure you've adjusted the little pitchforks here to actually meet up with whatever size bike you've got, and that way you don't have any issues with the bike tipping over. Just go ahead and slowly start lifting up on it. Guide it with your other hand to make sure that it goes into both of the forks and doesn't tip over or anything, and then just go ahead and walk it right on down. And now the back wheel is right up in the air and it'll spin freely.
Alright everyone, that's it. Like I said, this project should only take you about a half hour, and it isn't that hard. The torque wrench I used here is a Craftsman with a 1/2-inch drive, item number CMMT99434. It was about half the price of their fancy digital torque wrench, and it doesn't need batteries. Thank you so much for tuning in everyone. I hope this video helps you out. Please don't forget to like this video if you find these kinds of instructional tutorials helpful. Also, please subscribe to the channel to help me out and so that you don't miss my future videos. As always, ride safe and have fun everyone. Peace!